Hello, everyone out there. I am Poetic Heretic, and tonight I'm going to be going over the astrology for mid-late January 2019. So as always, if you are watching when this is not live, you may fast forward until 5 minutes in, where we will begin with the main part of the material. And in the meantime, I will get shit straightened out. How do we sound? 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 Good. Loud and clear. Okay, I see we are now about 5 minutes in, so let us begin. So I will be looking at the current astrological conditions. Remember, this is an overview of the sort of astrological weather and explaining things as they are now, and also talking about anything important that is about to happen in the near future, especially in the next week or so. And it may be a very brief stream, or it might be a longer one. We might get deeper into it. We'll just have to see what the conditions deem ideal. But we are at the very least going to talk about the essential current conditions and overview, and then perhaps we'll get into more specifics as we go. So what we have right now at this time that I am broadcasting this, it is 10:27 p.m. on January 23rd, 2019. And currently, just flipping my phone over so it doesn't distract me. To bring it down to what's happening right in the moment, the moon is in Virgo, almost precisely halfway through Virgo. In fact, now I just reloaded it, and it now is at exactly 15 degrees of exacting Virgo. And it is opposite Neptune, the planet of confusion and illusion. And so that kind of opposition is a time when, even though the moon is in exacting Virgo, Neptune is fuzzying things. Things are not as they seem. We're much more prone to confusion, delusion, and illusion right now. But fortunately, since this is just a lunar opposition to Neptune, it shouldn't last too long. And by tomorrow at this time, let us just see here. Yes, the confusion should have passed, and of course the moon will still be in Virgo, very exacting, so things should be clear in a precise sense. And then very soon after that, close to midnight tomorrow night, the night of the 24th, the moon does move into Libra. And again, this is Eastern time that I'm working with here, so midnight Eastern time. Not long before that, the moon moves into the sign of Libra, in which things are also clear, but now they're also much more peaceful and harmonious, and often very sweet and delightful, but still with that air of objectivity and detachment. So going back to the present moment, let us see here. What else do we have going on? Well, the sun is, of course, now in Aquarius. It is Aquarius season, and so speaking of detachment, we're all getting that sort of intellectual detachment for the next month or so. It's at 350 of Aquarius, so right at the beginning, pretty much. We're only a couple days into this. Now, Mercury is going to be entering Aquarius also in just a couple of hours here. That happens at exactly, let us see, 12:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, January 24th, 2019. So very soon, Mercury will move from Capricorn to Aquarius, which is also going to make our thoughts even more detached, and it is heading for an opposition, or a conjunction, with the sun in 6 days. So when Mercury aligns with the sun in Aquarius, that's basically amping up that very intellectual, detached sort of energy, and that is what we're all going to be feeling very much so. And so it's a time when we're less likely to be overly caught up in intense emotions, though that's certainly still possible under virtually any conditions. But it's like instead, we're much more likely to see our emotions from a more intellectual, detached, sort of objective viewpoint. And that will only intensify further in a couple hours from now, the very early hours of January 24th, once Mercury enters Aquarius, joining the sun. And then that conjunction, again, is in 6 days. And so that will be when we're at the peak level of detachment, one could say. Now, we just had recently a very interesting conjunction between Venus and Jupiter, which is still pretty much in effect. Venus at 17 of Sagittarius and Jupiter at 16 of Sagittarius. And so Venus lining up with Jupiter, well, Jupiter is expanding all of those sweet, delightful, harmonious, delicious Venusian energies. And so the area of life relating to love and relationships and that which we like, that which we enjoy, is being amplified significantly right now. Sometimes, with the more challenging aspect, Jupiter can make something too much of a good thing. So that might be an issue for some people. Like there could be too much socialization. Venus will also indicate all kinds of socializing. Too many social gatherings or too much relating with other people and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a really delicious time. Now, this conjunction is still being tried by Mars, and that's sort of going to intensify over the next, let me just see here, over the next couple of days or so, but sort of not, because Venus already trined Mars. Now Mars is on its way to trining Jupiter, while Venus is still pretty much conjunct Jupiter, but moving farther away from Jupiter. So, whatever. That's kind of hard to explain that, but basically Mars is adding an energy of impulsiveness and action and willpower and drive and assertion to this mix. And whenever we have Venus trine Mars in general, that's a very sweet and delightful connection in and of itself, where perhaps like people who might not always get along or getting along more, or like teams of people are working together better and stuff like that. It's easier to sort of get along with people when we have that. And maybe we can look more deeply into that later. So let's see what else. We recently had a Sun-Uranus square, which is now fading, but so recently things might have gotten a bit intense, or maybe very intense. So that's like the ego, the Sun, in conflict with that which is sudden, shocking, and unexpected, Uranus. And so things can get rather explosive with these Sun-Uranus squares. But that, let's see, that perfected 5 days ago, so on January 18th, and is now complete and is now fading. However, we also just had less than 24 hours ago Mercury square Uranus. So earlier today, let's see here, 6:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, January 23rd, we had Mercury squaring Uranus. And so, well, Mercury is a lower octave of the planet Uranus, and so that's tension in the mental realm and on multiple levels, I guess one could say. And so perhaps a lot of mental agitation and stuff like that, shocking communication, shocking developments in the realm of thought and communication, technological issues perhaps, but that has, of course, peaked and it is now fading as well. Let's see what else. Mars continues its transit through its home sign of Aries, continuing to fuel us with a sense of impulsiveness and being willing to take action much more. It is moving towards a conjunction with Uranus, which is going to be quite intense when that happens, but that's not happening anytime in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be a bit until that, so we'll save talking about that for another time. But Uranus now being at the very end of Aries, 2844 of Aries, and preparing to re-enter Taurus in early March. So let's see what else. We just had a full moon recently, of course, full moon in Leo. So things peaked at that time, and that was, when even was that? Let me see. That was just after midnight on January 21st, in the early hours of January 21st, again, Eastern time. So the energy cycle sort of peaked there. The lunar cycle peaked at that time. Now the moon is waning, and we're heading towards a new moon. which we won't see until early February. So if you're going to be doing any new moon rituals, February, I can just pull it up here, I believe. February 4th is your day. And it'll be occurring right around, let us see, right around 4 p.m. In fact, just like 4:01, 4:02 or so, Eastern Standard Time, February 4th, 2019, will be the new moon in Aquarius. So ready yourselves for that, but perhaps we can talk about that more at a later time. Let's see what else. Of course, Jupiter continues its transit through Sagittarius. Saturn continues its transit through Capricorn. We've already talked about those enough in recent streams. Now, other than that, that's about it as far as a summary goes. Like, again, as for right here, right now, the confusion of Neptune is sort of making everything very nebulous and mystified, but on the plus side, it could also be a good time for looking into things like astrology and spirituality. Any kind of spiritual practice, really, whenever Neptune is activated, is good to participate in. As soon as that passes, however, we're going to be back to feeling much more the dominant energy right now, which is the Sun in detached Aquarius, and is Mercury nearly entering Aquarius, and will be in Aquarius in just a couple of hours, keeping us in a very intellectual, detached, more or less objective standpoint, which I think we all could use right now when we've got energy like Mars and Aries trine Venus conjunct Jupiter and Sagittarius. We need that ability to sort of step back and look at things more objectively before allowing our impulses to get us carried away, before we do things without thinking. So it's good that we're having this shift. And on that note, Mars trine Jupiter, well, that can also, with Jupiter involved, just amplify that impulsive Mars energy even more. So we really want to be careful right now that we aren't acting without thinking, and that we know what we're doing when acting. But on the other hand, if there was ever going to be a time for us to take action on something, even if we weren't sure if we were completely ready, that time is indeed now. And especially for the whole time that Mars is in Aries. So watch out in 3 weeks or so when it aligns with the planet Uranus, because that could be rather intense. Let me just see when that even happens specifically. Looks like it's very early on February 13th. Yeah, like around 1:30 a.m. February 13th, again, Eastern time. So February 12th and 13th, look out. Could be an explosive couple of days. And just before Valentine's Day, so it should be interesting. All right, so that covers it in a very basic sense here. But let us see if there's anything else we should go into at this time. Well, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about if we should get into it deeper, because literally no one is watching this right now and I'm broadcasting it. But they were watching my other stream earlier, so I think people might be more interested in tarot. So I think what I'll do is, speaking of tarot, as I've done recently in these astrology streams, I'll do a tarot reading. I have my cards here. I'll do a tarot reading, a Celtic cross, on the week ahead. So January 23rd through January 29th, and maybe just kind of into the very end of the month, to give us additional information about what we can expect collectively as a human race, a human species, in this week of January, so we can be prepared for the challenges and also celebrate and look forward to the advantages and good feeling, pleasant experiences. I feel like those aren't talked about enough in astrology, honestly. All right, so let me sip some tea. And now with this tarot reading, let me spill some tea. I'm just kidding. All right, we would like a Celtic cross forecast for the next week and sort of into the end of January, maybe, on just the overall energy for the entire world, the entire human race, and just how we can understand the astrological conditions better. What else do we need to know? What have I not covered in this video or stream so far that would be important to communicate to those who end up watching it? Do a Celtic cross on that. All right, here we go. What additional insights can we gain into the current astrological conditions and those in the next week or in this week, in the week that we are to experience? All right, here we go. Death reversed, Three of Swords, the Moon, the Two of Cups, the Emperor, the Queen of Cups, the Ace of Pentacles, the Hermit reversed, Justice. The final outcome card is the Eight of Wands. Well, there's your Mars and Aries energy. All right, let's see here. Right off the bat, it becomes clear that there is a risk of not seeing things clearly, which is interesting because the Sun is in Aquarius right now, intellectual, detached, objective Aquarius, and Mercury is about to enter that in a couple of hours. So I think what that's really saying here is, as I was mentioning earlier, the influence of Neptune, the Moon-Neptune opposition, is significant right now, and the cards seem to want to emphasize that we might not be seeing things clearly right now, and that might extend more than we think one way or another into the week ahead. And so we have to be careful. We also got that Hermit card reversed for the outside force coming in, potential incorrect conclusions, wrong evidence, misdiagnosis. We have to be careful that we aren't like jumping to conclusions. We have to be careful that we aren't making misassumptions. Let's see, Death reversed for the current outside influences, and then Three of Swords challenge card. Under these conditions, we have to be careful that we aren't just overly intellectualizing things, with the Sun in intellectual Aquarius and Mercury about to enter that soon as well, to the point that we are not going into the shadow aspect of our personalities and experiencing the kind of deep emotional healing that we need to experience. And Death reversed is often an indicator of that kind of risk, and the Three of Swords says, there can be trouble, shock, worry, trauma to deal with here, and it needs to be dealt with, basically. Let's see, hope to achieve position has the Emperor. There's that Mars energy. Final outcome card is the Eight of Wands. Attitude or position is Ace of Pentacles, new beginning, stuff like that, the impulsivity of Mars. So let's see here. So we're all feeling very much like that, but it's almost like the cards are saying, again, and I did mention this earlier, but they're reiterating, like, don't act without being completely sure of the action that you're taking. Like, don't act without thinking. I mean, maybe it's okay to push yourself at this time to do things that you're a bit afraid to do or scared to do, but need to do. But on the other hand, don't act without thinking. However, let's see, there was, I believe, one other aspect. Yes, and I forgot to mention this, but I know it's coming up at the end of the month. The very last day of the month, Saturn will sextile Neptune perfectly. Saturn, the reality, the support, Neptune, the dream. And so it's literally like saying Saturn making real Neptune, the dream, making the dream real. And we see that Ace of Pentacles card for the attitude or position, and we see the Eight of Wands for the final outcome card, indicating like the very end of the month or end of this week, end of the month. Eight of Wands is swift change. Ace of Pentacles is a real practical beginning. So that Saturn-Neptune sextile spells good news for us collectively as a human race. The end of the month, if there's something that you've been trying to achieve all month or perhaps even longer and it hasn't quite been working, just you wait until those last couple of days, especially the very last day of the month when that sextile perfects. That will likely be when the dream is made real. It's not a free pass, you know, like if you haven't done your work, then Saturn's not going to give you any kind of free pass because that's not how Saturn works. But if you have done your work, you'll get what you want in all likelihood at that time. So that's very good to know. Let's see what else. The Two of Cups showed up in the past position. Some very nice, sweet energy. That was most likely that Venus-Mars trine. So that energy of true love and true connection and stuff like that. So the cards are wanting to point that out, that that's still going on in the background, which is very good. Queen of Cups for the near future, that deep emotional understanding. And so it's interesting. It's almost like the cards are saying that because the Sun and soon Mercury have now moved into intellectual Aquarius, that's allowing us to, if we let it, give us a sense of intellectual detachment that we can then use to peer into our emotions and see our emotions from a more objective viewpoint and work with them more effectively, both in ourselves and in others. That's what that Queen of Cups card, I believe, is saying there. So that's very advantageous to us. Then we've got Justice in Hopes or Fears. That could also be the Saturn-Neptune thing, or it could just be saying in general, and I say that because Saturn talks about you get what you deserve and justice and stuff like that. Could be saying in general that we hope that we will get our just rewards, one could say, in this scenario. Could also be commenting more on our hoping that we can see things clearly while there's still apparently some energy that is trying to prevent us from doing so. So this whole like objectivity versus subjectivity is highly active at this time, according to both the astrology and this reading on the astrology and the remaining days of January 2019. So that's about it. If we draw one more card, it's the Knight of Swords reverse, which can also talk about the potential of not seeing things clearly, you know, blocked intellectual energy. So again, be careful of that. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up here. I'm going to check on a couple things, and then that's going to be it. I'll probably go back to doing tarot readings tonight if anyone wants one. Yes, it's been fun, but I think it's time to go back to doing tarot readings. So thanks for being here. I will be back, of course, on Saturday for another tarot card analysis stream. That'll be the death card we look at then. I'll be back on Monday for another Seth stream. We're now analyzing the nature of personal reality by Seth/Jane Roberts. And then, of course, on Wednesday, as usual, maybe another astrology stream or just live tarot reading, something like that. I'm also really going to try to do more live tarot readings for donation of any amount. live streams in the near future up until perhaps the end of this month. I'm going to try to go live almost every single day if I can. So thanks for being here. Thanks for those who watch this afterwards when it's not live, and hope to see you next time.